Good afternoon. My name is Bernadette Kappen, and I'm here with my colleague Tim Kelly. We're representing the 4201 Schools Association, and as you know, it's made up of schools that service children that are deaf, blind, and children with physical disabilities. I'd like to start off the afternoon with a quote from Dr. Seuss. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And with that, I want to say that we know that each of you care so much for our children and for our schools, and that you have supported us throughout the years and with many struggles that we've had. And we have such a long, positive relationship with the legislature, and we thank you so much for that. We want to thank you for last year. We were able to receive the $2.3 million increase to support our students, and this represents the fourth year of those increases, and we were happy that the governor carried that over into the budget for us for this year as well. This has helped us support the students in many ways at our schools and our staff as well. The one issue related to that, as I said, we are thankful. This really brings us back to 2008, 2009, before we had some of the cuts, so that we really haven't kept pace with the funding. And that's really an issue for us with our schools. The other special ed schools in the state have really had about a 4% increase in their budgets over the last few years, and we haven't been able to keep pace with that. We feel that at a minimum, we would really need to have the 2.4 annual growth to really keep pace. At our schools, the children aren't just deaf, blind, or physically disabled. Many of our children have additional disabilities, which require extra support, really, to have them grow and develop into independent young people. We also see increased compliance issues that we have in our schools, and certainly the school safety issues that everyone is faced with. We also are so appreciative, and when we saw the governor's budget, we were thrilled to see the increase of the $30 million for the capital improvements. Many of our schools have been around for a little less than 200 years. The school that I represent, we've been in existence for 187 years. And we work hard to keep our campuses going, but with old structures, we do need that support to be able to fix things as they break. And all of these things are health and safety issues. There's really nothing there that's glamorous for the students in those areas. We have been the recipients, and we're grateful also for being included in the Smart Schools Bond Act, and that really helped with the technology for students that have disabilities. We also are thinking about our long term. As I mentioned, the $30 million really would help us on a short-term basis, but to really try to engage again with a dormitory authority authorization. And we would hope that we would be able to have the bond raised to $100 million to be able to use among the various schools and to participate in another round of DASNY projects that were very helpful to us. So we are very grateful for everything that you have done for us. And someone that I've been reading about lately, and I saw a quick quote that I thought would wrap it up for us from Sonia Sotomayor. She says that until we get equality in education, we won't have an equal society. And that's what we're thanking you for today, supporting us, and also helping us achieve that with our children who are deaf, blind, and physically disabled. Thank you.
Assemblyman Ryan.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to testify today. So Superintendent Kelly, I had a question for you. If you could, you have a request for capital in your proposal. If you could describe for us St. Mary's School for the Deaf, its age, but also your capital needs.
Yep, and thank you, Assemblyman Ryan. Our school was founded in 1853. Our current building is 1898, and then we've added on buildings 1916, 1958, and most recently 1975. So we have a need in the short term for a new security system, windows. There's a lead paint issue in a lot of our schools. Schools have to be a warm, safe place. So we would use that money in the short term for a security system, doors, windows, and even resurfacing our track, which is more than 25 years old.
And how much of your campus is from 1898?
just the main building there, but that 12 acres, I think we should have a little more property, but somewhere along the line, we lost some to our neighbors.
It's been over a century, so those things happen, right?
Correct, yes.
All right, thanks again for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mayor.
Thank you all for being here, and Dr. Kappen, thank you for the tour we had recently. One of the things you pointed out to me, I think would be useful for us to understand, is the medical complexity, or the complexity of the children that you now provide education to as compared to maybe 20 years ago, and the fact that you are having more complex children with more complex needs, some of the ones we met, and that has required a change, I think, to some extent, in the approach of the 4201 schools towards these children. Could you just explain, for example, some of the costs that are associated with a student has multiple needs as compared to a student who simply is, not simply, who is deaf or hard of hearing or blind, or one of the other sort of old definitions of what these schools serve?
I think it's really important to really talk about this, because you might have someone who's just considered visually impaired, but they also may have severe cerebral palsy. They could have additional seizure issues. Some of those children require additional support, more medical services in the school, and certainly adaptation of the facility for accommodation. And I think that's been something that we all face, and that our buildings were all around before ADA. So to be able to create the proper bathroom situations, and the child could move freely throughout the campus, those are all additional costs that you would need to have in place there. And we see it in all the disability groups. When you visited us, there was a young girl that was there from the Lavelle School for the Blind. And right now in the United States, the leading cause of visual impairment in children is something called cortical visual impairment. And this is a neurological disability where the child's eyes look okay, they have trouble seeing, but they have physical disabilities with other complications. So more and more of these kind of children are coming to our schools. And I would say at Lavelle, they probably have about 25% of their population have cortical visual impairment. So it definitely raises the costs. I think the other would be in professional development, in that when the children come to school, many of the people that we have are certified in vision, in hearing impairment, but we need to educate them on these additional needs that the children have. For example, if you have a child in your classroom that needs to be tube fed, you have to teach the teacher how to do this and get support from the medical services. So that also adds on.
Thank you. I actually taught at the New York Institute years ago. So I guess I have a question about the 4201 schools and the needs beyond the needs that you've identified in your testimony. We clearly have to update this formula. But I'm curious about some of the needs that are related to, for example, the additional disabilities that the students have these days and the causes of deaf blindness and deafness, which we had a big rubella bulge at one point, and the causes are different. How much of that is sort of very medical? I know you gave an answer to Senator Mayer. I'm curious about the additional costs to the schools for treatment for these kids, as well as what you're doing with regard to services when they leave your schools, when they age out, and the connections, like with Access VR, traditionally has not been too terribly helpful with this population. I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. I think the different causes, some are medical in nature, some are more developmental, that the people may have, that they have some intellectual difficulties in addition to their primary disability. I would say, as far as the access after they leave school, all of our schools have had good success there, I think, in that particular area, being involved with Access VR, or say in our situation with the New York State Commission for the Blind. At our school, our children primarily are academic, they may have some physical disability, and we've had good success the last several years. We have a 100% graduation rate, and last year we had 14 students that graduated, and we had 12 that were able to go to college.
Great.
The other two went to a training program to get additional skills. They were both students that came to us later in their career and really didn't have a lot of services, so they needed more blindness skills. Children at, say, the Lavelle School for the Blind, they would be working on transition plans for those children as well, to maybe go to adult services. Some of those students will stay at home for a living, others might go to group homes. And I think that's an important thing for us to be thinking about. We can do a really great job for them while they're with us, but we need to really support the vocational area and make sure there's positive outcomes for students there. Tim?
Our schools that have high schools have very strong transition teams, and we meet with the parents at least twice a year from age 14 on, and are working with the family in terms of the best outcome and what the best result will be in the community post-21.
That's great to hear, thank
I
you.
think the most important thing that we're able to maybe offer that they aren't maybe able to get in other settings would be really the whole focus on vocational opportunities. And that we really start with children when they're young to think about what are you going to do when you're older. And having a lot of internship opportunities for students that they're able to work in the community, work on the campus. We had a young fellow who was interested in, he's low vision, no vision in one eye, low vision in the other eye, and he was interested in photography. So we gave him jobs on the campus. He became really good at it. He went to the New York Film School for an internship, and they've accepted him in there when he graduates this year. So we really need to weave in the vocational with the academic and certainly the social emotional area. That's so important for our children.
Thank you. We have Assemblyman Bernadette for comment.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for all the fine work. There are 10 4201 schools throughout the state, 3 of which are in the Bronx, one of my own districts, so I'm so well acquainted with the good work, and we know, and your arguments and pleas that certainly has fallen, I think, on sympathetic ears and people who know. Cautionary word, Ms. Miller, you mentioned 30,000 more people you have served with flat funding. Some people can use that as an argument against you. You don't need more money, okay? And I know you do. I know just in the fact rents go up, people have to move to new, and they're going to get rent increases and do with the same, okay? So be careful, okay? And thank you very much for your service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We also have it. Did you, Robert? Oh, Senator Jackson, did you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, good afternoon. So, I didn't know too much about your schools, but I've learned a lot by your testimony, and I have your material. So I want to thank you for coming in, and I'm glad that I'm staying here to listen to everyone that's coming to this hearing, joint hearing today. My wife and I brought my brother-in-law, his brother here, when he was 19 years old, and he was visually impaired at the time as a result of retinitis pigmentosa. And he's lost all of his vision, but he came here and he learned Braille, went to the Lighthouse, and had the opportunity to go to community college, Delphi University, and got his master's degree. Now he's a licensed social worker, but that had taken a long time. And he's 19 and now he's 60 years old. But I say to you, so I have my experiences in someone that is visually impaired and then now totally blind, that have lived with me for a long time. He's been on his own for a long time. But I understand what you're saying, and anything that I can do to be helpful, because I know I have relatives myself that are visually impaired, not only my brother-in-law, but my sister-in-law, the same thing. And she's retired now, and she worked for the VA. But so I thank you for coming here, and I'm giving me the opportunity to listen, and anything I can do to be helpful, I will help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both, all three of you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Jaffe is the final questioner.
Just wanted to ask, do you sense, or your experiences in terms of the early intervention programs in the state, are they sufficient? Are they in various areas around the state? Are they being helpful to provide opportunities? Because I know I did special education, and the need that was very, very clear was to have the youth be intervention programs with early intervention really made a huge difference. The question is, are they sufficient? Are they functioning now as well? I know there are some problems that I've been told, and I'm looking perhaps to do a roundtable discussion. But I wanted to know if your interaction with the early intervention programs have been helpful, and are there issues that you have noted?
I'll kick it off. I think early intervention is critical for children, all children that have disabilities, but certainly for children with sensory impairments, for children that...
Could you speak into...
I would say it's critical for all children with disabilities, but certainly for children with sensory impairments, really critical. And Tim will speak a little bit more. He's involved with the deaf infant programs that some of the schools are involved with. I would say in the field of visual impairment, it's really not adequate for children that are blind and visually impaired. There are some agencies that provide early intervention, but not enough providers. And I think the real issue is that the cost is great often to provide these kinds of services. And when there's not proper reimbursement, then some of the agencies who were providing the services close those services. And then those children are without. So I would say that within New York State, it's important that there would be more emphasis on early intervention for children that are blind and visually impaired, and Tim could speak to the deaf infant program.
Sure. In our schools, we have a deaf infant program which services the students from birth till age 3 until they hit the CPSE process at age 3. And in these programs, it's a family approach to education where we teach the parents how to teach the children. And they have access to family sign language classes. Their siblings have access to these classes. And we use a multimodal approach in that program. So,
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is it for questions. Thank you for being here and the work you do.
Thank you.